Hey everyone, and welcome back to Stock Explorers, where we take a stack of sources and really pull out the most interesting bits. So you can be in the know on a specific topic without having to do all that reading yourself.
Yeah, it's great.
Today we are diving deep into the world of CleanSpark.
Okay.
They're a Bitcoin mining company.
Interesting.
And you might be wondering, why mine Bitcoin
Right?
when you can just buy it?
Exactly.
That is the exact question we're going to explore today that you all sent in.
Awesome. Let's do it.
So it might seem a little counterintuitive at first, but CleanSpark's whole strategy is about mining Bitcoin at a lower cost than just buying it outright.
Right. So they're playing the long game.
Yeah, they're betting on their ability to mine Bitcoin for less than it costs to just go out there and buy it.
Exactly. And CleanSpark CEO Zach Bradford, he calls it producing Bitcoin below market cost,
Interesting.
which is really central to their whole operation. Their VP of strategy, Harry Sudock, even compares it to buying Bitcoin at a discount. He said they'd much rather mine a Bitcoin for, say, $35,000 to $40,000 in electricity cost
Wow.
than shell out $95,000 to buy one directly.
That makes a lot of sense. And the crazy thing is they're actually doing it.
I know, it's really working for them.
Their average cost to mine a Bitcoin in fiscal year 2024 was only about $21,400.
That's incredible.
You can see why they're so bullish on mining. I mean, their revenue jumped 125% in just 1 year,
Wow.
thanks to this efficient mining strategy.
And you know what's even more impressive?
Like that.
All of CleanSpark's Bitcoin holdings,
Okay.
which are now worth almost $1 billion,
$1 billion.
were mined. They haven't purchased a single Bitcoin directly.
That's crazy. That's a real testament to the strategy. But how? How do they keep their mining costs so low?
Right.
I'm guessing it has to do with their focus on operational excellence, which
Yeah.
they talk about a lot in those earnings calls.
Absolutely. CleanSpark is obsessed with efficiency. One key metric they highlight is what they call fleet efficiency,
Huh?
which is currently 19 joules per terahash. To put that into perspective, it's like getting more miles per gallon with your car.
Oh.
You're using less energy to get the same result, which means lower cost and higher profits.
So they're getting more bang for their buck when it comes to energy consumption.
Exactly.
What about their actual power costs, though?
Another win for CleanSpark. Their all-in power cost is just 0.046 secs per kilowatt hour. That's considered one of the lowest in the entire industry,
Wow.
which plays a huge part in keeping those mining costs down.
So all this is pointing to a pretty impressive bottom line. I mean, we're talking over $378 million in revenue for fiscal year 2024.
It's pretty remarkable.
Clearly, their strategy is working.
It really is, but CleanSpark's approach goes beyond just the numbers.
So?
They're very different compared to some of their competitors.
How so?
They're not out there chasing the latest and greatest in mining technology. Instead, they prioritize building robust infrastructure and securing those low-cost power contracts. It's a long-term strategy that seems to be really working for them.
It's interesting that they're focusing on the fundamentals
Yeah.
rather than getting caught up in the hype.
Yeah, right.
Shows a level of discipline. That you don't always see in these rapidly growing industries.
For sure.
And, they're also doing something pretty unique.
What's that?
They're spreading out their mining operations across 5 different states.
That's right. They have facilities in Georgia, Wyoming, Tennessee, Mississippi, and New York.
Oh, that's a lot of places.
This diversification helps mitigate all kinds of risks like extreme weather events and grid instability.
So it's like they've got a backup plan for their backup plan.
Exactly.
I remember when Hurricane Helene hit their Georgia facilities?
Oh, yeah.
They were able to bounce back really quickly with minimal disruption because of that setup.
And that's a great example
Yeah.
of how their approach translates into real-world resilience.
Huh? Yeah, it's like they built a fortress to withstand almost anything.
They've thought of everything.
But there's another side to this too, right?
Right.
They're also really actively engaging with the communities where they operate.
That's right. CleanSpark is very intentional about choosing locations where manufacturing jobs have left.
Interesting.
Bringing economic activity back to those communities, they're focused on creating jobs
Yeah,
and being a real positive force in those areas.
I like that. It reminds us that these business decisions can have a real impact on people's lives. And it seems like CleanSpark is using their success to actually make a difference.
I agree. And speaking of making a difference,
Yeah.
have you noticed that CleanSpark is sticking with Bitcoin mining, while some of their competitors are branching out into things like AI and high-performance computing?
It's a good point, especially with AI being such a hot topic right now.
Yeah.
You'd think they'd at least be tempted to dip their toes in.
Right.
Why do you think they're staying laser focused on Bitcoin mining?
CleanSpark really believes that Bitcoin mining offers the fastest path to high margin revenue. And their actions back that up. They've got the process down to a science, getting new mining sites up and running in as little as 6 months.
Wow, that's fast. Whereas venturing into those fields like AI or HPC,
Yeah,
that could take years before they see any return.
exactly. It's a much longer game. And while they're not ruling out other opportunities down the road,
Okay.
right now they're doubling down on what they do best.
They're sticking to their knitting.
Exactly. CleanSpark sees Bitcoin as a long-term game, and they're building their whole business model to support that vision.
Bold strategy.
Right.
But looking at their track record, they might be onto something. I mean, they've consistently exceeded expectations, delivered really impressive results.
Right.
It'll be interesting to see how this all plays out over the next few years. But let's be real. Bitcoin is known for its wild price swings.
Oh, yeah.
How does CleanSpark handle that inherent volatility of the market?
That's a great question. CleanSpark acknowledges that Bitcoin's price is cyclical, with its ups and downs.
Of course.
But they believe that their strategy of low-cost production and scaling their operations will help them ride out both the bull and bear markets.
So they're not just hoping for the best, they're actively planning for different scenarios?
Exactly. And remember that diversified portfolio of mining assets across 5 states, that also helps them manage risk.
Right. It's like that whole bouncing back from Hurricane Helene thing.
Exactly. It really speaks volumes about their risk management strategy.
It's like they've anticipated all the potential pitfalls
Yeah,
and built their business to withstand them.
a very smart approach.
Which brings us to the question that's probably on a lot of people's minds. What happens to CleanSpark if the price of Bitcoin just plummets?
Oh,
Is there a risk of bankruptcy?
that's a scary thought.
It's a valid concern. Bitcoin can be so unpredictable, and a major price drop could have serious consequences.
Right.
What do we know about their financial stability from the data?
Well, so far the data paints a pretty reassuring picture. As of September 30th, 2024, CleanSpark had a healthy cash reserve of $121 million and a $50 million line of credit with Coinbase.
So that's a significant cushion
It is.
to absorb any potential shocks.
Right.
Okay, so they've got a safety net in place for the short term. What about their long-term strategy for navigating a real downturn in the Bitcoin market?
Yeah.
How are they preparing for that possibility of a bear market?
Well, that's where their digital asset management initiative comes in.
Okay.
It's a very proactive way to manage their Bitcoin holdings.
And
They're exploring things like covered calls, lending, and providing liquidity to ETFs.
so they're looking for ways to make their Bitcoin work for them,
Yeah.
even if the price isn't going up.
Exactly.
It's like a backup plan for the backup plan.
Precisely. They're taking this multi-pronged approach to risk management, which is exactly what you want to see from a company in such a dynamic and an unpredictable industry.
And it all goes back to their focus on operational efficiency
Right.
and that counter-cyclical investment.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just riding the wave. They're building a business to thrive in any market condition, not just when Bitcoin is booming.
That's a key takeaway from all this. But there's one thing about their strategy
Yeah.
that I think raises some interesting questions.
What's that?
CleanSpark has said many times that scale is crucial for success in Bitcoin mining.
Right. They've made it very clear that bigger is better in this industry. Where do you think that's going to lead?
Well, it's worth thinking about whether this push for scale will lead to a consolidation of Bitcoin mining industry, with just a few big players like CleanSpark dominating the market.
And what would that mean for Bitcoin if that were to happen?
Right. Centralization is a huge concern in the crypto world. How would a more consolidated mining landscape impact Bitcoin's decentralized nature?
That is a really important question and something we should definitely explore further. But we'll have to do that after a quick break.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Before the break, we were talking about CleanSpark's belief that scale is crucial for success in Bitcoin mining and what that might mean for the whole industry.
Yeah, it's definitely something worth exploring a little further. So let's think about some of the potential benefits of a more consolidated mining landscape. Larger companies like CleanSpark, they often have an advantage when it comes to negotiating better deals on electricity and equipment.
Right, they've got more leverage.
Yeah.
And buying power
Exactly.
compared to those smaller independent miners.
It's like bulk buying. You get a better price per unit when you buy in large quantities.
Makes sense.
And they can spread their costs
Yes.
over a larger number of mining rigs, which further reduces their per Bitcoin production costs. So this could actually lead to a more stable and profitable mining industry overall. potentially attracting more investment.
That makes sense. But what about the potential downsides? Are there
Yeah.
any risks associated with just a few big players controlling most of that Bitcoin hash rate?
Right, so this is where things get a little bit more complex.
Okay.
One concern is that centralization of mining power could make Bitcoin vulnerable to attacks or even manipulation.
Because if a single entity or a small group controls enough of the hash rate, they could theoretically influence the Bitcoin blockchain.
Yeah, in theory. They could censor transactions
Right.
or even try to double spend Bitcoin. But it's important to remember that's not an easy thing to do.
Okay.
The Bitcoin network is designed to be very resilient, and it would take a massive amount of coordination to successfully attack it.
But even so, the risk is still there. And I know that the Bitcoin community takes that very seriously.
They do. It's a good reminder. That decentralization is a core principle of Bitcoin.
Absolutely.
Another concern is that consolidation could lead to a less democratic and more centralized governance structure for Bitcoin. Decisions about the future direction of the protocol could be made by just a small group of powerful miners, potentially excluding those smaller stakeholders.
So there's a trade-off to think about. On the one hand, consolidation could lead to a more efficient and profitable mining industry.
Right.
But on the other hand, it could increase the risk of that centralization and undermine some of the core principles of Bitcoin.
Exactly. It's a debate that will likely continue as the mining landscape evolves.
For sure.
And it's worth noting that CleanSpark, despite their emphasis on scale, they are also a big advocate for responsible mining practices.
So they're not just focused on maximizing profits. They're also thinking about the long-term health and sustainability of the Bitcoin ecosystem.
Absolutely. It's something to keep an eye on for sure. But right now, CleanSpark is positioning themselves as a real leader in the Bitcoin mining industry. And their strategy seems to be paying off.
Yeah, they've seen remarkable growth in a relatively short time, and they're showing no signs of slowing down. It'll be interesting to see how all this plays out in the coming years.
Now, let's switch gears a little bit and go back to CleanSpark's decision to stick with just Bitcoin mining. We talked earlier about how some of their competitors are branching out into things like AI and HPC.
Right.
But CleanSpark is sticking to their guns.
Why do you think that is? Is it purely a financial decision, or are there other things going on?
It's probably a mix of things.
Good.
They believe that Bitcoin mining offers the fastest route to high margin revenue. And remember, they've streamlined their operations, and they've built this proven track record of efficiently deploying capital and bringing new mining facilities online quickly.
They're like a well-oiled machine at this point.
Exactly. They know what they're good at, and they're sticking to it.
And they're also betting on the long-term growth potential of Bitcoin itself.
Right.
They see it as this revolutionary technology that's still in its early stages of adoption. And they believe the demand for Bitcoin will continue to increase over time.
So instead of chasing trends like AI or HPC, they're laser focused on securing their position in what they see as the most promising market.
So they're playing the long game.
Exactly, and it really speaks to their conviction in the future of Bitcoin.
I mean, it's one thing to mine Bitcoin for profit.
Right.
It's another to really believe in its potential to change the world.
Precisely, and that belief seems to be driving a lot of their strategic decisions.
They're not afraid to go against the grain and chart their own path.
It's a bold move, and it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Will it pay off? I guess that's the big question.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But it's worth thinking about that potential upside. If Bitcoin does continue to gain mainstream adoption and becomes a truly global currency, as many people predict, CleanSpark will be in an incredible position to capitalize on all that growth.
They'll be sitting on a mountain of Bitcoin, mined at a fraction of the market cost.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Talk about being in the right place at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll have all the infrastructure and expertise to keep scaling up and increasing their market share.
So while their decision to just focus on Bitcoin mining might seem risky to some, it could pay off huge if their bet on Bitcoin is right. It's a calculated gamble for sure, backed by a deep understanding of the market and a real belief in Bitcoin's future.
CleanSpark is a company with a bold vision, a commitment to doing things right. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the world of CleanSpark.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the world of finance and technology.
Don't forget to subscribe to Stock Explorers and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our future episodes.
And be sure to like this episode if you enjoyed it.
Until next time, happy exploring.